I've seen in books, and I said this wasn't what I witnessed. This wasn't the person I loved. This wasn't how he was those last, 9 months, and I was with him 98% of the time.
A shocking discovery at Elvis Presley's tomb in Graceland has reignited decades of mystery and emotion. What began as a simple maintenance routine turned into an unbelievable revelation, one that could change everything we thought we knew about the king of rock and roll. From a strange misspelling to a hidden letter, this story will leave your heart melted and your eyes in tears. The day the king was laid to rest, Elvis Presley, the voice that once made the whole world dance, was gone. News of his death had spread like a storm 2 days earlier, on August 16, 1977. Radio stations had stopped their regular shows to play "Love Me Tender." People who had never met him cried as if they had lost a family member. Now, 2 days later, the man who had filled stadiums with joy was being carried home for the last time. A long line of cars followed the white hearse that carried Elvis's bronze casket. Fans pressed against police barricades, whispering prayers, some fainting in the heat. Reporters described the scene as one of the largest gatherings Memphis had ever seen. Inside the gates, the Presley family stood waiting. Vernon Presley, pale and broken; Priscilla, silent and strong; and Lisa Marie, only 9 years old, holding her mother's hand tightly. Vernon had chosen to bury his son at Forest Hill Cemetery, the same place where Elvis's mother Gladys had been laid to rest years earlier. But even before the funeral ended, rumors began to swirl that the security there wouldn't be enough.
Did you consider yourself well-behaved?
Yes.
But what about the rumor that you once shot your mother?
Elvis's fame was too big, even in death. When the casket was opened for a private family viewing, some of those present later said Elvis didn't look quite like himself. His skin appeared smoother, his face slightly different. A few whispered that it seemed more like a wax figure than a body. Of course, no one dared to say that aloud to Vernon. Still, the feeling stayed in the room, a strange sense that something wasn't right. The casket was sealed tightly that evening under the watch of security guards. Fans were allowed to pass by for one last look before it was closed for good. Over 30,000 people filed through the line, many of them crying so hard they could barely walk. Only weeks later, something happened that shocked everyone. In the middle of the night, police caught a small group of men trying to break into Elvis's mausoleum at Forest Hill. They claimed they wanted to steal his body. Vernon Presley, terrified that someone might succeed next time, made a painful decision to move Elvis's remains to Graceland itself.
And in the course of all this, a lot of untruths were being said regarding mine and Elvis's relationship, a lot of exaggerations.
He wanted his son to rest close to home, protected behind the walls that had meant safety for them both. And so, in late October 1977, the body of Elvis Presley and that of his beloved mother, Gladys, were quietly reburied in the meditation garden at Graceland. Only a handful of people were present. No media, no crowds. The meditation garden soon became one of the most visited places in America. Fans arrived from all over the world, leaving teddy bears, candles, and handwritten notes at the grave. The soft sound of water from the nearby fountain filled the air, and the eternal flame beside the tomb burned day and night. The marble headstone bore his full name, Elvis Aaron Presley, January 8, 1935, August 16, 1977. But a few observant visitors noticed something odd. The middle name Aaron had 2 A's. Most lifelong fans knew Elvis had always spelled it Aaron, after his stillborn twin brother Jesse Garon Presley. Why the change? Some said it was a simple correction. Others whispered it was intentional. A clue, a sign, something only Elvis himself would understand. Vernon never spoke about it publicly. He only said that this was the name his son wanted on his grave. But even that small detail planted a seed of mystery that would grow for decades. No one could have guessed that nearly 50 years later, a group of cleaners would uncover something hidden beneath the very stone of that famous tomb. Something that would stir up old questions, awaken tears, and make the world wonder all over again. Was the king's story ever truly finished? Stay tuned as this gets more interesting. The beginning of a mystery, the mysterious misspelling. The meditation garden at Graceland is quiet most mornings. The air smells of flowers and polished marble. Tourists walk slowly, speaking in whispers, as if afraid to disturb the peace of the place. Yet, Over the years, one small detail on Elvis Presley's tomb has stirred endless curiosity. A single word carved into stone: Aaron. January 8, 1935, August 16, 1977. But those who grew up reading about him, writing fan letters and buying memorabilia, knew another spelling: Elvis Aaron Presley, with one A. This wasn't just a minor thing. It was how Elvis himself signed his name for most of his life. His twin brother, who was stillborn, had been named Jesse Garon Presley, with one A. Elvis, deeply connected to his lost twin, chose to spell his own middle name the same way, Aaron. So when fans came to Graceland and saw Aaron on the grave, they felt confused. Why would his family change it? The theories began. In the early years after the funeral, the Presley family stayed quiet about the tombstone. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, was overwhelmed with grief. He rarely spoke publicly, and when he did, his voice carried the sound of a man trying to hold back tears. But silence can create more questions than answers. Some said the name change was a mistake by the stonecutter, a simple error that no one dared to correct. Others believed Vernon had chosen to correct the spelling to match the Bible's version of Aaron, the brother of Moses, perhaps hoping to give his son's resting place a spiritual meaning. And then there were those who whispered something far stranger. They said the name Aaron with two A's wasn't a mistake or a correction. It was a sign, a quiet, secret message, that the man buried there wasn't truly Elvis Presley at all. In fan circles, the theory took on a life of its own. Some argued that Elvis, who was fascinated with spirituality and symbols, would never allow a false spelling on something so sacred unless it was intentional. What if, they asked, the family used the wrong spelling as a way to protect him, to mark the grave as not truly his, just the marble stone that read Aaron? Over the years, many visitors left letters at the site. Some asked for blessings, others begged for answers. One fan from Texas once wrote, "Elvis, did you choose Aaron yourself? Or is this your way of telling us you're still out there somewhere?"
Yes, I was in front of an audience at a fairground when I was 11-year-old. It was a fair, an annual fair, and they had a talent contest.
When journalists finally began to ask questions, historians tried to explain it rationally. Dr. James Cole, a Presley biographer, said in one interview, Vernon decided to use the double A spelling because he wanted to honor both his sons, Jesse Garon and Elvis Aaron. It was a father's decision made out of love, not secrecy. But even that explanation didn't silence everyone. Fans pointed out that Elvis himself never used Aaron in official documents until very late in life, and even then, inconsistently. To those who believed Elvis had somehow escaped fame or staged his death, the Aaron theory became proof that his burial was symbolic, that the real Elvis was somewhere else, living quietly. Away from the by-summer, the chaos had quieted. A small crack, a faint sound beneath the marble, and a discovery that would soon shake the heart of Graceland. What started as a simple cleaning job would soon uncover something far greater, something that would bring both tears and questions to millions of Elvis fans around the world. The cleaner's discovery, another headstone mystery. Every few months, a special cleaning and maintenance team was called in to polish the marble and check the structure around the tombs. They were not fans or tourists, just simple workers, proud to care for a place that meant so much to millions of people. But on that particular morning, something unexpected happened. Their job that day was simple: to polish the marble walkway, reapply sealant to a few cracks, and inspect the lower border of Elvis Presley's tomb. It was the kind of work that required patience, precision, and gentle hands. One of them, Eddie Thomas, a middle-aged worker with 20 years of experience, was scrubbing near the bottom edge of Elvis's tomb. He tapped the spot again with his brush handle. Tock, tock. The sound wasn't the same as the rest of the marble. They thought maybe it was a loose tile or a small air pocket beneath the stone, normal for old structures. But as Eddie gently ran his hand along the seam, he felt something else, a fine line, like a hidden edge. It wasn't a normal crack. It looked deliberate. Out of curiosity, they applied a bit of pressure, trying to see if the marble would move. To their surprise, the lower corner of one panel shifted slightly. It moved just enough to reveal a thin, dark gap underneath. At first, they froze. They knew better than to tamper with anything in the meditation garden without permission. Soon after, the maintenance supervisor came, a woman named Carol Peters, who had worked at Graceland for more than a decade. She looked both curious and cautious. Using a flashlight, Carol peered through the gap. What she saw made her eyes widen. Beneath the tomb was a metal compartment, not part of the usual design. It looked like a small sealed box built right into the foundation, hidden under the stone for who knows how long, a hidden compartment. The Graceland blueprints didn't show anything like it. There was no record of a compartment or time capsule beneath Elvis's tomb.
This image, I never once saw him eat a fried peanut butter, the famous fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches. I never once saw that.
With gentle care, Carol and the team lifted the corner panel just enough to expose the box. Dust filled the air. Inside, wrapped in a piece of old cloth, were two objects, a Bible and a sealed envelope, both aged but surprisingly well preserved. The initials EAP were unmistakable, Elvis Aaron Presley. The envelope was yellowed, the edges curled with age. It was sealed with what looked like wax, now cracked slightly from time. Written across the front in dark ink were the words, "To be opened only by my father." And beneath it, in a hand that trembled slightly but was still clear, was a date, August 15th, 1977, the day before Elvis's reported death. Within the hour, higher officials from Graceland arrived and carefully took the Bible and envelope away for examination. The area was closed off. The workers were asked to sign non-disclosure forms and not to speak to anyone about what they'd seen, but it was too late for silence. Something about that moment, that box, that letter, stayed with them, and word always finds its way out. By evening, whispers began moving through the Graceland staff. A cleaner had found a hidden message, a letter written before Elvis died. No one knew exactly what was in it, but one thing was clear. It was as if the king had left behind a secret, buried under the marble, waiting for the right time to be found. The internal investigation. By the next morning, Graceland was buzzing quietly behind the scenes. To the public, nothing seemed different. The gates opened at their usual time, tourists lined up for tours, and the meditation garden looked as peaceful as ever. But beneath that calm surface, something big was happening. Inside the main office, security officers, managers, and a few trusted archivists had gathered. On the center of a polished wooden table sat two objects.
Till I was again with you.
The worn Bible and the sealed envelope that had been discovered under Elvis Presley's tomb just the day before. Everyone in the room knew they were looking at something priceless, something deeply personal. The Graceland Foundation faced a problem. What were they supposed to do with something that seemed to have been meant only for Elvis's father, Vernon Presley, a man who had passed away back in 1979? Finally, after a long meeting, the decision was made. The items would be turned over to the Presley estate officials for examination under strict confidentiality. Two handwriting experts and a preservation specialist were called in. The envelope was placed in a controlled environment and photographed from every angle before being gently opened. The seal cracked softly, and inside was a single folded page, yellowed but still intact. The letter was short. Written in blue ink, the handwriting was unmistakably Elvis's, the same bold slant, the same flourishes seen in his personal notes and autographs. At the top of the page, dated August 15, 1977, it read simply, "If anything happens to me, don't let them see me like this. I'm tired, Daddy. I'll always be close, in spirit and in song." Then at the bottom, in larger letters, EAP. Some of those present had worked at Graceland for decades. They'd heard every rumor, that Elvis was depressed, that he wanted to escape, that he planned to leave the spotlight. But to see those words written by his own hand was something else entirely. Carol Peters, the maintenance supervisor who had found the items, was invited to view the letter. She stood quietly, tears welling up in her eyes. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew the end was near." The letter and Bible were immediately sent for forensic study. Handwriting analysts compared the letter to hundreds of verified samples of Elvis's writing. The conclusion came back within days. Authentic, no doubt. The ink and paper were both consistent with materials from the 1970s. Even the fold marks suggested the letter had been handed. According to construction records, the meditation garden had been remodeled in late 1977 after Elvis's reburial.
I was dating a girl and waiting for her to get out of school so we could get married.
A small section beneath the tombs had been reinforced for stability. It was possible that someone, maybe Vernon himself, or one of the workers, had placed the items there before sealing it. Perhaps Vernon wanted to honor his son's final wishes privately. Perhaps he placed the letter there as a symbol, a final link between father and son. No one could say for sure. The workers who had been present during the original reburial were either long retired or gone. About peace, redemption, and forgiveness. One verse from the book of Psalms had been marked with 2 lines and a note beside it that read, "Someday I'll rest easy." Another note on a page from Corinthians read simply, "Love never dies." Those who saw it said the Bible seemed deeply personal, the kind someone reads in the quiet hours of night, not the kind kept for display. The estate kept the discovery private for several weeks, studying every detail, but they knew it couldn't stay hidden forever. The world would have to know news begins to leak. Despite the strict confidentiality agreements, word began to slip out. A worker mentioned something sacred had been found beneath the grave. Someone else told a friend about a letter from Elvis. Within a few days, whispers reached local journalists. They started asking questions the foundation couldn't easily answer. Others believed it was his farewell note, or even a hidden clue about a secret plan to disappear. The truth, as always, sat quietly in between. In the weeks that followed the quiet discovery under Elvis Presley's tomb, Graceland became a place of uneasy calm. The tourists still came in hundreds every day, snapping photos, leaving flowers, whispering prayers at the meditation garden. But the staff moved differently. There was a tension in the air, something quiet and unspoken. Most of them now knew, at least in pieces, what had been found. A letter, a Bible, something personal that Elvis himself had written just a day before his death. They weren't supposed to talk about it, yet almost everyone had heard a version of the story. By this time, whispers about the Elvis letter had spread far beyond Memphis. National tabloids began running sensational headlines. Secret message from Elvis found under tomb. Elvis predicted his own death. Fans demanded answers. Reporters called Graceland daily, but the Presley estate stayed silent. Lisa Marie's representatives released only a short statement. The Presley family respects Elvis's privacy and the sanctity of his resting place. Any discoveries within the meditation garden will be treated with reverence and kept confidential. The words were calm and formal, but behind them insiders said there was deep emotion. Lisa had reportedly read the letter herself and wept quietly for hours. It reminded her of the father she loved and lost too soon, and of the pain he'd hidden behind his gentle eyes. The Presley Foundation eventually allowed a small team of archivists and historians to examine the tomb area again, this time carefully, using non-invasive ground scanners. They wanted to ensure there were no other hidden compartments or artifacts beneath the marble. But some believed it might hold something else, perhaps more letters, or even personal items Vernon Presley had buried with his son. However, before further digging could begin, the estate abruptly halted the research. No official reason was given, only a statement: Graceland's meditation garden will remain untouched. The king deserves rest, that only made the rumors grow stronger. Fan reactions and media frenzy.
Did things start happening fast?
Yes, very fast.
Elvis fans around the world were torn. Some felt deeply moved by the idea that Elvis had left behind a heartfelt message before his passing. Others saw the estate's silence as proof that there was something even more shocking being hidden. Fan clubs across the U.S. began holding candlelight vigils, reading aloud Elvis's final words as if they were scriptures. "I'll always be close, in spirit and in song." For many, it wasn't just a letter anymore. It was a spiritual connection, a final promise from a man whose music had comforted them through decades. Television reporters began camping near Graceland's gates, hoping for any new statement. The estate hired extra security to manage the crowds. When the letter was finally displayed privately for preservation, a new plaque was quietly added near the meditation garden gate. It read, "To the memory of Elvis Aaron Presley, whose voice never faded and whose heart remains forever near." Visitors still leave flowers, notes, and small crosses. Some say they feel a calm warmth there now.
Doing more TV shows, and I came to Hollywood and I did 4 movies. So everything was happening in a short period of time.
A stillness that wasn't there before. For many, that letter wasn't a scandal. It was a message, a reminder that behind all the fame, Elvis was human, fragile, searching, and loving till the end. The press conference, a public reveal. By early spring, the quiet storm surrounding Graceland could no longer be contained. The world had heard the whispers, seen the blurry photos, and read the rumors. But no one outside the Presley circle truly knew what had been found beneath Elvis Presley's tomb until that warm April morning, when Graceland made the announcement that would shake millions of hearts around the world. It happened on a sunny Thursday. A row of microphones stood neatly arranged at the Graceland Visitor Center. The room was filled with reporters, camera crews, and a small group of longtime fans who had been invited as witnesses. Certain personal items belonging to Elvis Presley were found beneath his resting place. These items have been verified as authentic, and with the Presley family's consent, we have decided to share one of them with the public. A handwritten letter that appears to have been written by Elvis himself the day before his passing. Gasps filled the room. Reporters leaned forward. Cameras clicked rapidly. Margaret continued, her eyes glistening. This letter is deeply personal, a reflection of Elvis's heart, his struggles, and his love for his family and fans. It is not a goodbye, but rather a message of peace. Then she stepped aside, and on a velvet-covered stand, a glass display case was revealed. Inside, illuminated softly by light, lay the letter. For the first time, the public saw Elvis Presley's final words, the short, emotional note written in his familiar blue ink. The crowd went silent. No one spoke. Even the reporters lowered their cameras for a moment as if out of respect. The letter read, "If anything happens to me, don't let them see me like this. I'm tired, Daddy. Tired in ways that no medicine can fix. I tried to find peace, but the noise never stops. Don't cry too long. I'll always be close. In spirit and in song, EAP." Within hours, news of the letter swept across the globe. Television anchors read it aloud on air. Radio stations paused their regular programming to play Elvis's songs in tribute. Hashtags like #ElvisFinalLetter and #Spirit and Song began trending online. Fans from every corner of the world, from London to Tokyo, from Memphis to Johannesburg, shared their memories of where they were the first time they heard an Elvis song. Some said the letter gave them closure, others said it opened old wounds, but everyone agreed on one thing. It reminded them that Elvis Presley wasn't just a legend, he was a man, one who carried the weight of fame and loneliness until the very end. A few hours after the reveal, Lisa Marie Presley released her own short statement. Her words were simple, but they carried enormous emotional weight. "My father gave the world everything he had, his talent, his kindness, his laughter, and even his pain. This letter shows the part of him few ever saw. I hope people will read it not with sadness, but with love. He wanted peace. Let's give him that now." Her message was broadcast worldwide, and for many fans, it was the most genuine moment they had seen from the Presley family in decades. The estate refused to comment further, saying only, "The focus should remain on the heart of the message, not the mystery." But as always with Elvis, the mystery refused to fade. Graceland's visitors came not just to see the mansion or the cars, but to stand near the tomb where the letter had been found, the place where Elvis's earthly story ended, but his voice lived on. Dr. Morrow released a private paper that wasn't meant for the media, but eventually leaked online.
It's my life, you know. Don't say too much about it.
They accept it other ways.
Do you find that touring is much more harder on you than making movies or doing TV?
Well, touring is the roughest part.
In it, he wrote something that changed how many people saw the gravestone forever. Perhaps the AA in Aaron wasn't a mistake or deception. Perhaps it was Vernon Presley's way of symbolically linking Elvis to his faith. Elvis carried that same burden, the voice of millions, the weight of fame, and the loneliness that comes with being loved by all but known by few. His words spread quietly among the fan community, and for many it brought comfort. The misspelling wasn't a clue that Elvis was alive. It was a father's tribute to his son's spirit. In time, the discussions faded. The online debates slowed. The meditation garden remained calm again, still, timeless, filled with the sound of trickling water and the faint scent of magnolia blossoms. Years later, when people looked back on the Graceland letter as it came to be known, it wasn't remembered as a mystery or a scandal. The letter remained on display for a limited time before being returned to a climate-controlled vault. By summer, the chaos had quieted. The letter remained on display for a limited time before being returned to a climate-controlled vault. It was remembered as Elvis's final conversation with the world, the honest words of a man who had carried too much love, too much pressure, too much pain, and through that letter, fans felt closer to him than ever before. Because for all the lights, fame, and headlines, Elvis's truest legacy wasn't just his music, it was his heart. A museum guide named Robert said something that stayed with many fans. During a quiet evening tour, as he stood before the tomb, he looked at the visitors and said softly, "Maybe the real mystery isn't what's buried here. Maybe it's how one man could leave behind so much love that it still moves us, even now." The group fell silent. In the background, the speakers played softly, "Love Me Tender," and under the golden evening light, the marble name Elvis Aaron Presley seemed to glow, not as a mistake, but as a message of faith, of forgiveness, and of eternal peace. If you enjoyed this video, like and click the subscribe button to follow us and share the video.